What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to another Monday afternoon. And today we are talking about a very special movie, a movie that I freaking loved. We're talking about Terminator Dark Fate. Get hyped, guys. We're going to tell you all the reasons this movie kicked ass. We'll see you in a second.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
Boom! I love the drop.
Haha.
Ha-ha! Ha-ha. Guess who's back?
I just did haha in the Schwarzenegger voice. Did you catch that?
Ha-ha.
Ooh, there we go.
Ooh, look at that. Remix!
Fist pump right there.
That is a fist pump.
I love that music so
That's
much.
I mean, that's right at the beginning of T2, you hear that and you're just like ready to go.
They never really went back to it in this movie, which was weird.
No.
They teased it, but they never just fully went back to the T2 music, which I found to be kind of strange, because that particular piece, that theme, which I know they had done every movie.
They've done it in every one.
So they
which is
decided
why
they
I'm
probably
glad
didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
It'd been overused, but it's still like such a Terminator thing.
Snap!
Whoa, did we just do a medley?
We did a bit of a medley there.
I can imagine John Connor listening to this in his headphones whilst killing.
Listening to Still Dre.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Another day against Skynet.
It's a weird movie. All right, guys, what's going on? We're here. It's Action Movie Anatomy here on a Monday afternoon here on the Popcorn Talk Network, the online broadcast network dedicated to talking movies, all things movie related and pop culture by the bucketful. I'm Ben Bateman. That's Andrew Ghai. Hype. We got Ryan Nicholson up in the booth. Ryan, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Awesome weekend. Psyched to hear about Terminator Dark Fate, which I did not see.
You haven't seen it yet.
I know.
see it.
I'm shocked you haven't. So tell us why you haven't seen it yet.
Burned
Yeah.
too many times,
Yeah.
and I
Yep.
think there's better things in the theater.
I mean, that your sentiment is echoed by many people as this film looks to lose a lot of money, so we will get into that a little bit more. Spoiler alert, Andrew and I both enjoyed this movie.
Loved it. I actually love this movie.
Yeah, I liked it, but I definitely think that our opinions, and there are a few other critics, I've seen some people that we work with who have reviewed it well. We've gotten some hate for our opinions of liking this movie.
Couldn't care less.
Well, I know that. I'm surprised that people are as...
Yeah.
So they're like offended by the idea that we've talked positively about it, which is strange. It's like, this is the first time I've ever reviewed a movie positively, and I've had multiple comments between YouTube and Twitter being like, "You're shilling for the studios. You guys are obviously
one of the
paid.
first times I'd ever heard that.
You're obviously paid to give good thoughts." And it's like, do you think that the studios are paying us to talk about Terminator?
All right. Well, you must think pretty highly of us.
We save our free popcorn tokens that they give us at the movies.
We
I
do.
mean,
I've reprinted mine.
yeah.
So there's not a screener going on today.
Yeah.
Just take it. Take the voucher. I need free validation. It's interesting because, you know, every single one of these franchises, whether it be Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Terminator, what have you, the ones that carry the most weight behind them, the biggest fan bases, DC, Marvel, no matter what, you lose when you're a critic.
Yeah.
There's no way that you can actually please everybody, and there's actually no way that you can not get assaulted verbally by the half that isn't ready for this. So what I find so interesting about Terminator is that there's been all these other installments that people hated.
Yeah.
And we're happy to hate. And now finally one comes along that's good enough.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not as good as 1. No, it's not as good as 2. But it's good enough. And now they're mad that you enjoy it because it's good enough. And you're giving it credit when they want you to just hate it as much as the other ones. But I don't know.
Totally.
It's so weird.
That's one of the strangest things, right? Is that like, what did people want this movie to be? And what did people expect this movie could be? Like,
Yeah.
what did they think that this movie was going to be in its best case scenario version? If this movie just absolutely succeeded on all levels, it's like, I think we talked about it on our stream last night, but if this is the Force Awakens to the franchise that people talk about, if this is supposed to take the older characters and bring them back in, introduce new life with the younger characters, it's not like anybody looks at the Force Awakens and goes like, "Oh yeah, this is on the same level as Star Wars. This is the same level as Empire. This is just as good." People go, "No, this was like a really good reboot. I liked it enough. I'm excited for what comes next. You know, you guys did a great job. I liked a lot of it." That's the best you can do. And the Force Awakens is a really good movie.
Yeah.
That movie's great. Like, that's the best you get. This is not as good to the franchise as The Force Awakens is.
I mean, even if this movie was better than T2 somehow,
Yeah.
do you think anyone would ever
Recognize
happily
it?
admit it or recognize it?
No.
No. There's no way.
It's impossible. So we're gonna get into all these things here, guys. But
Yeah.
here on the Popcorn Talk Network, we will be talking Dark fate. If you guys want to follow along with the conversation, let us know your thoughts in the chat here. Be sure to follow along. You can find everything that we do all over the place at Action Industries, at Team Action Show on Twitter.
It has been an interesting and exciting week for Action Industries, especially if you check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Team Action. We have generals, we have 5-star generals out the wazoo. We will be giving shout outs to that later, but the first shout outs we have to do today are Dennis Gretzky and Jason Jackson. Big time salute to you guys from us for supporting our Patreon. Thank you so much. We will get to the crazy amount of upgrades we had. We had one of our best nights for our Patreon last night. It was absolutely insane.
There was so much fun stuff. We have an action-packed show today. There's a lot to talk about. So I want to just get right into it. But we cover action movies on this show. To date, we have covered Terminator 1 and 2 for sure.
Yeah.
I believe we never covered 3, 4, or 5.
No, I think there was a moment where,
we were doing the show when 5 came out. I remember we had just started it.
Oh, wait, no, I think we did Genesis.
You did Genesis on Anatomy of a Movie.
That is it. Okay, that sounds right.
Yeah, because I haven't ever finished Genesis. I got 20 minutes into the movie. And
It's better than T2.
Somebody the other day was like, first 20 minutes of that movie are awesome, and then the rest is terrible. I was like, really?
I'm trying to remember the first 20 minutes of that movie. No, it wasn't awesome. It just wasn't bad.
Yeah, I thought it was bad. I mean, I didn't finish the movie.
Yeah, it's not good. Not good.
But yeah, so we've done the first two. This will be the first Terminator film we've done since T1 and T2. As you mentioned, this is a franchise that has, I think, pretty unfair standards to hit. But the action movies that we cover on this show adhere to 4 basic rules. Rule number 1: the hero always plays by their own rules. Who's the hero of this movie?
I believe the hero of the movie, it's got to be the girl. It's got to be I got to pull up her name right now because I can't remember. Yeah, the actress's name because I don't want to misspeak on it. It's between her and Mackenzie Davis, right? Is that's
I guess so. I guess the whole you can't ever remember Mackenzie Davis's name.
I don't know why. It's been like 7 times. Natalia Reyes. And then it's
like a team. It's a team effort. You got
all of them.
T-800 Schwarzenegger. You got Linda Hamilton in there. It's a team. I guess it feels like, as it usually is the case, it's like humankind is the hero. I guess, right? Like it's you're fighting for like you're fighting for the survival of the human race. So you're using all these conduits to fight for that survival. I
think if you had to pick one true hero in the movie, as much as it does feel like it should be Natalia, I think it actually is just Mackenzie Davis.
I agree.
Yeah.
The hero always plays by their own rules. She does feel like she plays by the rules handed down to her by like the future.
By Natalia.
Yeah.
And also by the limitations of her body.
Right. Also, guys, we are definitely going to spoil this movie. So,
a lot of spoilers.
If you
Spoiler alert.
if you are interested in not being spoiled, it's probably a good episode not to watch. But come back if you want to, watch it
no
later.
episode is a good episode not to watch, but don't get spoiled.
Rule number 2: the hero and the villain are always the smartest people in the room: beings, things, dinosaurs, Terminators, what have you.
Terminators are always the smartest.
Yeah,
they really are.
The Terminator's always the smartest bad guy for sure, because that's just what Terminators are. And Linda Hamilton feels like the smartest in the room in this movie.
But then Arnold actually ends up being... He's not smarter than her, but he's outsmarted parts of her. And
certainly knows more about drapes.
He certainly knows more about drapes and cell phones and potato chip bags.
Yeah.
And then Mackenzie Davis she's like your smart soldier.
Yeah.
Right? Like, she's the soldier that's not an idiot, that's not just following orders. She is actually above average intelligence for a soldier, but she's not the smartest person in the room.
Well, because what she never does is she never has a moment where she's concealing something and then it's revealed and you're like, oh, you're such a hero. Everything is like surface level. Everything
on the table for her.
All her information is like put out on the table.
She does hide that the girl is the one that saved her for a really long time.
Yes.
That's her one ace up the sleeve. And because she's I don't think Natalia's ready to carry that weight yet. Yeah.
Rule number 3: the movie is driven by a police, military, political, or mercenary figure. It's funny that we added mercenary like 2.5 years ago and it's still not on the outline.
Nope, never will be.
Yeah, sweet.
Police, military. Isn't there like militia also?
No,
did we never do that? I thought we did militia because of the
Patriot.
The Patriot, maybe.
Nah,
he leads a militia. Benjamin Gates.
Speaking of him, he's got a new movie coming out. Roland Emmerich. He's got a movie called Midway coming out. And you know what show he's going on? He's going on Collider Live this week. Roland Emmerich is going to go do a full interview.
That's exciting.
I'm excited to watch that. I like Roland Emmerich.
I like Roland Emmerich.
I mean, he's made a lot of bad movies.
He's made a lot of bad movies.
But even his bad movies I like.
They're enjoyable.
And so we'll get to that later. Rule number 4: the movie contains a minimum of 1 explosion. Yeah, Terminator movies always have a lot of explosions. Cody Seal says the T-100 actually, Ben.
Interesting. Because the 800 died?
No. I guess is it the T100 is the one from
T1000 is T2. T800 is the original.
Or is the T800 the one from T2 and the T100 is the one?
No.
I'm looking it up.
There's no way.
No, I think what it is the T100 that comes in Terminator 1. There was multiples of the T100. Then the T800 is sent back to protect John Connor in T2, and the T1000 is Robert Patrick. That's what I think it is.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Maybe.
But the T1, I don't know.
Cody, aside from letting me know that my best player in fantasy fumbled last night on my stream,
why don't you run your own show, Cody Seal? You can call things whatever you'd like.
Big salute to Cody Seal,
General Seal.
General in the Action Army.
Boom, big salute to you.
There's so many salutes now.
All right, so, and then rule number 4, the movie contains a minimum of 1 explosion. It's a Terminator movie. There's always going to be explosions in Terminator movies.
I got the 800 facts, or the 100 facts.
What do we got?
Lay it out.
T100's from this movie, oddly enough. T1000
said.
T2, yeah.
T1000 is from T2.
Yep.
T800 is from Salvation.
What? The hell's
Salvation.
the
The prototype was it's the first time they were like, oh, it's the prototype in the film Terminator Salvation.
So what is he in Terminator?
1000.
No.
That's T1
T2.
must be the T100.
1000 we got Terminator. Terminator 2 and Genesis are T1000, and for the first Terminator, I'll check that one right now.
Should have done this over the last week.
I blame General Seal.
It's all Cody's fault. Making us look like idiots on our own show.
T100 was first Terminator.
T100 is the first one. Okay, all right. Well, I feel like we learned nothing from this whole thing. So much appreciated to Ryan and to Cody. And
so coming up on the show today, we are going to be discussing this franchise, the future of it. Is this franchise dead? We are going to be having a quick conversation about practical versus CGI. We have a little bit of inside baseball stuff as far as the production of this movie with Eddie Green's 101 podcast. We're going to be featuring a little segment with him that we did. And we are going to be talking about all of our other fun games that we do on the show, such as Thesis Statement, Favorite Line, Fist Bump Moment, and we're going to recap last night's Action Face-Off Commanding the Army, which is a Patreon thing we started doing. Ryan, I was going to tell you about this before the show.
What's that?
Stay tuned.
So sweet.
I'll get to it a little later in the show.
He just leaves the booth when we start talking about it.
It's really sweet. It's really fun. So we're going to talk about that a little later. But let's talk about the movie right now.
Yeah.
We always start with Thesis Statement. This is your biggest boldest thought about the film. Something happens in the movie, and you're sort of like, okay, I'm going to focus on this as my point. This is going to be the thing this is the best thing about this movie. The first, the last, the greatest, almost like rooted in hyperbole. This is your biggest point about the movie. Now, you seem to be pretty excited about yours, but I also know that it led into another conversation. So I'm going to start with mine.
Okay.
And then let you go in with yours.
Okay.
So my thesis statement about this movie is that this movie came out 5 to 10 years too early. Now, I can explain it in 2 different ways. Because I don't believe in 5 to 10 years you can make this movie with Arnold, Linda Hamilton. I think they're already on the edge of being at the age that feels like it's believable. Like watching a Terminator throw Linda Hamilton around is like, if you were 25 when this was happening, it would already be kind of unbelievable. But the fact that you're like 60 and getting like tossed across the room by a machine and just getting up and like picking up a gun is like a little tough to buy.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, I just think Schwarzenegger, like you can even see it in his body. Like at Schwarzenegger's age, to be in the shape he's in, you can push your body pretty hard. You can't push your body that hard. So I think if it's another 5-10 years, this movie gets pretty hard to make. But I also think that means that let's just say they had made, T3 and then T4 and not made Genesis, right? Let's say that this movie had come out and the last Terminator movie was 10 years ago. I think that this movie's okay. I think this movie survives. I think people see this movie. I think this movie, like, they didn't wait. They made too many Terminators in too short of a time and people got burned too consistently. The last Terminator movie came out 4 years ago, right? Prior to that one, the last Terminator movie was 6 years before that. Before that one, they had waited 6 years. But like, if you had just skipped Genesis and this movie had come out and we had 10 years between Terminators, I think people would have disliked Salvation, but they just wouldn't have held it against the franchise so much.
Well, the thing is that Genesis was supposed to be a reimagining and the start of a new trilogy. It was supposed to be the start of a new series.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen because it was bad and it didn't do well at the box office, didn't do well, it wasn't well received by critics. So like, if Genesis just doesn't happen, they wait longer and then they end up doing this movie. I think they're in a better place in the sense of they could start another Terminator trilogy if they wanted, or another Terminator series. And it feels like it would be far enough disconnected from the originals, but I do think that it would have been really hard to get Arnold and Linda in there and to believe it.
It makes me sad because it feels like this is the last go around I can really expect with those guys. Maybe we get one more, but like I can't really see even if they somehow can like muster the strength to make one more of these. But look, we've seen it happen, guys. At the end of the day, box office is king. I mean, that is truly, honestly what it is. And you'll see bad decisions get made by studios with properties based on that. Nobody's going to look me in the face and tell me that The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, directed by David Fincher, is a bad movie. That movie's fucking awesome. That movie's great.
It's a great
They were
movie.
supposed to make a trilogy. It didn't do well at the box office, and it was too dark for people's taste, so they never made the second movie. Then, years later, they just decided to make another movie in the franchise with a different actress and a different director, and that movie, no one cared or saw it. Like, it's one of those things where you look at Hollywood.
It's like one of the worst. Yeah, one of the worst decisions that we've had in Hollywood in a long time is that.
You guys make enough. Like, Claire Foy is a good actress. I've heard that movie was pretty cool. I didn't care. I didn't watch it. I don't really want to watch it. I just love the first one. I love the one with Daniel Craig. I think that's a great movie. I would watch it again. I would watch a sequel. I would have loved to watch a sequel.
Oh, of course. Could you imagine if Fincher directed that whole trilogy?
So anyway, long story short, I just think that there was a difference of 5 to 10 years needed to make this franchise sing that we just didn't have the luxury of because that's just what these guys do, and Universal needed to make this movie.
So my thesis is, it's interesting because we were just talking about trilogies. I truly believe that if this movie, if Dark Fate was the third film in this franchise, the third installment, it would go down as one of the greatest action movie trilogies ever made. But because of the other movies that happened in between, how much it disappointed us as an audience, how many times we'd been let down, like Ryan said, it destroyed this franchise. Terminator Dark Fate will never get the respect that it deserves because now it's a good enough Terminator movie that came too late that will always be compared to T1 and T2. And for some reason, Terminator diehards feel like if 5 is good, it takes away from 1 and 2. Whereas if 3 is good, it doesn't take away. It adds to a great trilogy, and those two still stand above it.
Yeah, I didn't, because I have self-respect, go back and rewatch 3, 4, and 5 prior to this episode. I did my time on those movies, aside from Genesis that I couldn't finish.
Yep.
I didn't want to like spend the time rewatching them again. But it's really interesting. You know, one of the generals in the Action Army, a 5-star general actually in the Action Army now, Mac Ryan, is somebody who's a gigantic Terminator fan, really huge fan. And Mac got excited because we talked about that we liked this movie, and then when he saw the film, he was disappointed. He didn't like it.
Disappointed, yeah.
Similar to, you know, and obviously we're going to play a little clip later of Eddie Green, who's had a podcast called Terminator 101. He had his pros, but he also had his cons. I think when you're so invested in like the history of the franchise, it's just really hard to appreciate the good things about this movie. I think it's okay to say the same we did that like Linda Hamilton is awesome. I think a lot of the things that we liked about this movie, they can get on board with too, but it's like we see like 12, 15 movies a week some weeks. I can't get that invested in like the lineage and history of Terminator. I just can't care that much. I can evaluate it on face value. I can know that T2 is maybe the greatest action movie ever made. I can know that 1 and 2 are great pieces of history that I have a great attachment for. But I just can't get that disappointed by 6 because it's not as good as I remember 1 and 2. It's just it's not going to affect me that much. This movie was above average. I liked this movie. I enjoyed a lot of it. I recognize the flaws. We're going to talk about them, but like, aside from that, like, it's not horrible. It's not offensive. There are movies that are offensively bad. This is so completely in a different camp than that. Like, the flaws in this movie do not make this movie bad.
No, and it's not a bad movie. And again, I think it's just because of the pedestal that we've put T1 and T2 up on. Yes, they are very, very great action movies. They really are. And the first one's a really nice, or really well-made drama, but this movie, T6, Dark Fate, whatever you want to call it, is just good. And it's good enough to have just been the third great movie in the trilogy.
Yeah.
And the other ones just didn't need to happen. Genesis, you can't make John Connor a bad guy.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. That's something that you're going to really piss off Terminator fans with doing.
AJ Lancaster here in the chat says, he liked T3 through 5, but only after everybody completely lowered my standards. Also, not written here is that he thinks About Schmidt is a better film than any of them. AJ, salute to General Lancaster. He's part of the Action Face-Off we're going to talk about a little later. Very excited to talk about that. I'm more excited to talk about that than almost anything today.
It was so much fun.
I had so much fun.
It was a blast. So those are our thesis statements, guys. I saw some of yours in the chat, but
what was your thesis statement?
really?
I thought we were just talking about mine with the different the years.
The whole thing is saying that it should be the third film in the franchise.
Yeah, the trilogy thing. Sorry, I thought that was a continuation of what I was just saying. Yes.
Yeah. So and that leads to the conversation of where do you go from here with Terminator, right? Because now that it is the sixth film instead of the third, and it flopped once again. We've got another Terminator movie flopping at the box office.
This is a bad one. This one looks like it's probably going to lose $100 million.
What do you do? You got Arnold, you got Linda, you got Mackenzie Davis, up and comer. You got the special effects, you got the money. It's a good time to release it.
Yeah.
What do you do?
You kill the franchise. It's over.
You have to.
So we had a big conversation at one point on one of our shows. I don't remember which one it was. It was I think it was probably around the time Jason Bourne came out, would be my guess. And I think the conversation was, which of these franchises has to die? And I think we were talking about James Bond, Jason Bourne, Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
And the whole conversation came up of like, when do you kill a franchise? How do you kill a franchise? Is it okay to kill a franchise? And some of them, if you tell me that you're going to kill Mission Impossible, like, maybe. If Cruise retires from the role, it's probably a pretty tough sell for that franchise to work without Tom Cruise. I don't know. It's the thing, that franchise is Tom Cruise, right?
Yeah.
If you tell me that James Bond is going to die, I mean, I don't really like most James Bond movies, but that's preposterous. It's been played by like 7 actors
Yeah, you
or
can't
something
just
over
kill
25
James
years.
Bond.
You just keep making those movies forever. Like, even if you reboot the whole thing. Jason Bourne, I think we both agreed that was the franchise that needed to die because it just didn't feel like we were getting enough out of it. There wasn't enough history. This is a franchise that I look at and I just go like, if Schwarzenegger's not in the movie like they did with Salvation,
Right.
it's a different movie. If you don't have any of the original cast members, and now because you're dealing with different timelines and time travel, so like when people want to say it's retcon and 3, 4, 5 didn't happen, this is a direct sequel to 2. Yeah, okay, big movie nerds like us that talk about it all the time will understand that when we watch this movie, we're supposed to understand that. Do you really think that my mom on her next flight when she turns on Terminator Dark Fate has any fucking clue what we're talking about?
Right.
None.
Or if you're like, well, or even if you're someone that's seen all of the Terminator movies and then you're being told, well, now you just can't remember this one. You just can't think about these. This one comes afterward. It's actually 3, but it's really 6, so it comes in between 4. You're like, what?
My brother was the guy that got me watching movies when I was growing up. He's seen 1 and 2 a ton of times. He loves T2. I think he probably has seen one of the ones in between there. You're telling me that if he VODs this movie once it's out of theaters and watches it at home, he's not going to just be asking all the questions of like, wait, what about that thing that I saw in that other Terminator movie? I guess it's a Terminator movie. There's like time travel.
No, it doesn't. It didn't happen.
It's like, nobody's going to explain that to you. That doesn't happen. That's not how movies work. You don't get to just say like, none of that happened. This happens.
Yeah.
And so I just think that at this point, as sad as it is for me to say, I can't imagine what they would have to make with the next Terminator movie for me to be like, this was a great idea. It totally worked. It forgives all the mistakes of the past. And also, like, think about what they would have to do. I think one of the problems of this movie is that I think that the Terminator itself is too powerful. I think he's almost too unkillable. You have to evolve him to be stronger if you make another movie, because that's how these movies work.
Well, it's like, I also think you need to make him smarter, right? It doesn't need to just be overly powerful, which is what this felt like. And you know what? I'll actually steal something that Roxy Stryer said, because she was at the same screener that we were at. She said the biggest problem with this movie is that they killed Mackenzie Davis. And that is actually the biggest problem in this movie. You expect Arnold and Linda to go, even though Linda doesn't go.
Yeah.
Spoilers are still happening. But you kill Mackenzie Davis, and yeah, they can technically bring her back if you figure out a way to pull that bullshit off. No one wants that. She should have lived at the end of the movie. She's the person you care about. I'm sorry. Reyes is great, and her character is cool, and the little, like, the flipperoo that they pull on you, the switcheroo, and let you know that she's actually... Yeah.
Did you just make up the word flipperoo?
It's because it felt so lame, like, when it happened. Like, yes, it was cool, but it was also just like, of course she's the captain and the commander, and there is no John Connor.
I thought you were talking about when you used the phrase flipperoo.
No, that was pretty cool. No, that was awesome. That was one of the coolest moments I've had on this show. But Mackenzie Davis needed to stay alive. She's the most interesting person in the movie. She does a really, really great job. She's a total badass.
Yeah.
She's very convincing. She's got a lot of depth. She does it. She carries the load of the movie on her shoulders. And now with her gone, if what they could have done to make me go and watch a Terminator movie next year or 2 years from now, Mackenzie Davis is back in it.
Totally agree. I thought, because I really want to talk about, I think, some of the most positive parts about this movie and some of the things we liked the most. And I think one of the things I liked the most about this movie was when she shows up, she physically fits the role so well. She's like,
You can tell she's jacked.
Yeah,
like
and
she's worked out.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen a decent amount of things that Mackenzie Davis has been in now, and so I remember when they announced her for this, I remember thinking like, yeah, she's got the build, she's got the height, she like has the sort of look that, and I thought that stuff with like where you could see the like scars on her body of all the implementations in her body. I thought the whole design of her as a character was really awesome.
And like I was not convinced by her in the first few moments of the movie. I was not convinced until the first Terminator fight.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit. Okay. All right. I'm in, girl. You can rock this.
She also has a line, right, where she's like, she asks for the guy's clothes under the bridge, and the guy's like, thanks. And she walks up and she gets like real close to him and she's like, don't thank me yet. And I was like, I didn't know if she was a Terminator or not. So I was like, if she's a Terminator, this is so stupid. Why did she just say that?
Now she's going to kill him. Lame.
But then you find out she's a person and you're like, oh,
she steals her car. And that's
sweet.
Why.
Yeah, she was awesome. So I think we can both agree with that. What I want to do is once Yash Srivastara.
Just classic Yash.
Yeah,
this is classic Yash.
Trash execution. Just looking.
Writer's room is garbage. David Goyer's a hack.
Yep. Toes the line here.
Be honest. Happy to have you here once again, Yash. Not surprised by your comments. Keep being you. Keep doing you.
Keep on keeping on. All right. So once we get to critical and box office, we're both going to give our actual rating on a scale of 1 to 10 of this. But I want to wait till that to actually talk about what we thought about it.
Okay.
In terms of proper. But so right now, I want to get into the moment of the show called fist bump moment. Something happens in the movie. You look around. Are you seeing this right now? This is so awesome. You get so hyped. You want to watch the rest of the movie. You're so pumped to do it. And I have to say, this movie had a lot of them.
There really were a lot of them.
This movie had like a bunch of stuff that I was really hyped on, and I don't know if you and I have exactly the same one, but it definitely feel in the theater we certainly had it.
Oh yeah, and I think that I just have to use it because it was the right moment.
When you first see Linda Hamilton,
she's so awesome.
So we're on the highway, we're like getting to the climax of this big like 25-minute action sequence that opens the movie. It's a badass action sequence. The car chases.
It's a really good action chase.
Like there's so much cool stuff with like the pipes and Mackenzie Davis, and like you see the exoskeleton under the liquid, and he gets on the car.
Yeah, and you finally see it split for like the first time, and you're kind of trying to figure out, or maybe it's the second time, but you're trying to understand how exactly it works.
Yeah, there's only like brief moments in this where like the CGI or like the weirdness of like the Terminator jumping so high took me out of it. But aside from that, I was pretty engaged. I mean, I thought it was pretty awesome. Like I really liked the stuff where like Reyes is freaking out. She's like, we have to save my brother. And Mackenzie Davis is like, we can't. He's dead. Move on.
Yeah.
Like classic Terminator stuff. And so that's awesome. But then all of a sudden you're like, what are they going to do? And it's just, you just like see her foot step out of the car
and just start unloading.
And it's just like,
and she's using the same shotgun that killed John.
It's just so like satisfying. It's so
because you knew she was coming.
Yeah,
you didn't know when she was going to come in, and you didn't know how they were going to do it, but you knew they were going to. It's that thing where you're like, all right, we know something really sweet's going to happen when Linda Hamilton comes on screen. Can they pull it off? And they totally do.
Yeah.
And then she even says, "I'll be back," which is like, you almost hate it, but you mostly love it.
Yeah, because I mean, there is like this one really weird sort of tongue-in-cheek thing that Cameron is so obsessed with in this franchise for whatever reason. It's like going back to the first movie. It wasn't in the first movie. So the whole idea of Schwarzenegger saying, I'll be back in the first movie, that's not funny or quirky when he says it.
No.
The first time, he just drives a car through a police station and like
and murders people.
As a Terminator, he'll be back. So that's what he does. In the second movie, they do a bunch of that stuff where like, you know, the Hasta la Vista baby and all that stuff. Like they really focus on, they lean into that sort of like campy humor. And then they continue to try it like movie after movie. 3 has a lot of it.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the only moments in this movie that does it. Like we're in that way. Because there's some humor with Schwarzenegger that I really like.
I actually like the humor with Schwarzenegger.
But specifically when Linda Hamilton says it, it's like the callback line, you know, and it is what it is. So
I change diapers efficiently.
Yeah,
I'm a good listener.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm a good partner.
Our relationship is not physical.
Yeah. That stuff was really funny. Like,
oh, it's so good.
And he's got the like, this would be hard to explain.
Yeah.
He just shoots him. All right, so other fist bumps though.
So we got so Paul Denuzzi says Sarah Connor and the Carl moment when he's hanging off the plane and she could have taken him.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what that is.
at the end, when Schwarzenegger's hanging off of the ramp with one
gotcha,
arm.
gotcha. And she lets him, gotcha. Yeah.
She could have like tried to get him off the thing.
Liam Gilpin says when Arnie comes back with one arm climbing the dam and the T2 music kicks in.
Yeah.
Oh, so that is when the music, but they don't do the full on dun dun.
I didn't think they did the whole thing.
We got Cody Seal saying a lot of fist bumps for me, but it came in the final for John, which was cool. I like that.
The T-1000 in a helicopter was cooler than the CGI third act. Are you talking about TJ in a helicopter?
Must be Robert Patrick flying the helicopter in 2,
right?
That's the only time the T-1000's in a movie.
I was just trying to think if he's talking about like, is there a liquid moment in this where he's flying a helicopter? There is, isn't there? Doesn't he get a helicopter?
Yeah, but he's not. I don't think he's talking about. This is Yash, dude.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be praising Dark Fate.
It's fair enough. So I think my other fist pump that I'll go with, because I just definitely thought this was sweet.
Oh, and I'm extremely funny.
Yeah.
It's really good.
The writing on that was great. It was spot
it
on.
really was, and his execution is wonderful.
And the humor of that was very much like Tim Miller Deadpool. You were like, okay, I get this.
Yeah.
You're a guy that understands how to use this effectively, and it doesn't overpower the movie. When Schwarzenegger unloads the machine gun into Gabriel Luna's head, his face,
yeah.
he's like, I think he's got him pinned. He's either on the plane or he's like, I think he's on the plane.
I think so.
And he just like close range just unloads the full machine gun straight into his face, and you
like,
see all the stuff like
Yeah.
congealing off his face. That was such a fist pump. That was like, yes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the fights were really sweet. Like
Really
the
sweet.
fights between Mackenzie Davis and Gabriel Luna were really, really awesome.
In the factory at the beginning, their
Yeah.
whole like that was badass.
It was amazing, and like her with the hammer and like hitting it. She like
the chain.
the chain. Oh yeah, the chain at the end. That was sick. And like I love the idea of her being an augmented human, and like what an augmented human can do. And she even references, she's like, well, I'm an augmented human that can see 1,000 or whatever with her improved eyes when she was like trying to talk to Linda Hamilton. It was all just enough, you know. Nothing was too much for me. So yeah, those are probably my fist pumps.
Yeah, because there was also like just stuff with the creation of her character that I thought was really cool too. Like I especially liked how she says like my metabolism is built for short bursts. If you don't kill a Terminator, you die. So like when she's explaining why she's so strong, but why she's running out of gas.
Yeah.
Like that's really cool. That's the type of stuff that makes me feel like it's a Cameronism where like he's thought about this stuff. You know, one of the things, because we're gonna play this little clip in a bit here from Eddie Green, but one of the things he said Cameron's biggest contributions to this movie was the idea of what does a Terminator do after his mission is complete. If a Terminator kills its target,
It's just on Earth.
how does Carl happen? And like
Right.
the idea of that is one of the Cameron's big contributions to this movie, which is cool. Like I like those ideas that Cameron has, these big sci-fi ideas that make it into the movie. I think that's pretty badass.
I did get a slight fist pump when you figured out that I think for some reason I want to call her Danny in the movie, but I feel like that's not right. What is her name? Natalia Reyes' character's name?
Donnie Ramos.
It is
Danny.
Danny. Okay, yeah. For some reason, I actually, even though I found it somewhat predictable, because it was like I didn't think that she was just going to have a baby again, and it was going to be the next John Connor.
Yeah.
I had a feeling it was going to be her, but then the timelines kind of are hard to follow, right? Because she still seems super young when she meets Mackenzie Davis as a baby, but then at the end of the movie you see her watching Mackenzie Davis play. So I like that they were able to toy with the timelines just enough to where there was somewhat of a reveal when you figured out that she was actually a badass.
Yeah, well, because I think it started to be clear to most people watching that there was something going on like that, like you're saying. I think at one point, like 30 or 40 minutes into the movie, because Roxy was sitting next to us, she leaned over and she was like, she's her mom. She like for a second she thought that, you know, Danny was Grace's mom, maybe,
right?
And maybe that's how it worked.
And I had a sweet fist bump moment too when it was like the whole Terminator franchise has the precipice. It's been sitting on the fact that the man saves the world.
Yeah,
like this
right.
man saves the world, and then it's like, oh well, yeah, but Linda Hamilton is the mom, so she's got to protect her son. So but then this movie was just like, nah, there's no man. It's just all women. It's just literally these two women are the ones that are here to save the world. And I thought that was pretty cool. I liked it a lot more than the Avengers Endgame moment where they all just stepped out. You know?
I completely agree, because that's like that in some ways, that moment, even though it's a powerful moment, does feel more like pandering. Like it's a cinematic moment, but
Right.
it also feels like it's being pretty kind of spoon-fed.
Well, it just felt like, how would this have happened in the middle of the battlefield that only the women would be separated when you're so that was one of the things with Endgame, and I liked the way that they were able to communicate the same message in this movie without just like hitting you in the face.
And Cameron's pretty famous for, like, in general, having pretty strong female characters in his movies. You know?
Yeah.
Pretty capable female characters. So those are our fist pump moments, guys. We're going to get into career profiles here for just a second. Did you have any other fist pumps you wanted to add? Or
No, I think that's it.
So let's talk through these. You know, Linda Hamilton, 2019, movie called Easy Does It. Curvature in 2017, A Sunday Horse 2016. Truth be told, Linda Hamilton's never had much of an acting career outside of the Terminator franchise. Even if you go back to the old films, after T1, before T2, she doesn't have a lot of credits that are notable. She is most famous for having played this role, and I honestly was not even aware she was really acting prior to this movie.
Yeah, I didn't ever expect to see Linda Hamilton act again. Honestly, I didn't know if there was ever going to be another Terminator movie, and then when I heard this was announced, I was like, okay, all right, maybe this is the last thing. Here's the thing: is you could look at this as an audition tape for Linda Hamilton again to remind you that she's got it. She's a good actress.
Yeah.
She's not just a badass. She's actually a really good actress.
I agree. And there was a couple moments in this movie that they were going for it with her to try to establish just how dark her life has been. She has that one line where she says, you know, I do this, I hunt Terminators, and I drink till I black out.
Yeah.
And, like, that was, like, one of those moments where you were like, she says it with this, like, crazy in her eyes a little bit. Do you know what I mean? That line when she says it with this, like, empty craziness in her eyes, where I was like, that line is hitting me over the head with just how dark her life is. But it's like, I don't know how much I believe that side of her as an actress. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But I did like her a lot in this movie. Moving on to Schwarzenegger.
I gotta just clarify something here. Someone says, no, that wasn't cool. Terminator has never been about boys versus girls. I would encourage you to rewind what I just said. I never said anything about boys versus girls.
Yeah,
it's not about men versus women. It's just about who is the hero of the film.
Right.
That is all.
Yeah, and the notion that there is a great commander who sends back this soldier, both of whom are women, in this movie, whereas John Connor is the savior of the human race and is a man in the earlier film. So it's a nice change to get a different perspective.
So we appreciate you watching, but maybe read and listen before you speak. All right, so moving on to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Journey to China, The Mystery of the Iron Mask in 2019, Killing Gunther in 2017, and Aftermath in 2017. Never heard of any of them.
So Aftermath is like a heist movie or something like that. It's like, I think it's I remember it. There's one called Aftermath. There's one called Sabotage.
Oh, I remember Aftermath. I remember the cover.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
Exactly. He's like a cop or something. He's got a bulletproof vest. Killing Gunther is
He's got a cop. He's a gun.
Killing Gunther is the Taron Killam one, which is like the hitman comedy, and Schwarzenegger is a hitman.
Okay.
Named Gunther. That's the one when I talked to Taron Killam about Schwarzenegger earlier this year on that carpet. We were doing our Schwarzenegger impressions. That's the movie. He was talking, because I was like, I'm such a Schwarzenegger nerd. I like nerd out for this stuff.
Right.
And I was like, did you? And he was like, dude, are you kidding me? He was like, I grew up as the biggest Schwarzenegger fan in the entire world.
Who is this?
Taron Killam. And he's like,
got it.
getting to come to set and work with this guy on the days that we worked with him. He was like, it was like a kid in a candy store for me. And then I tried to do the cabinet minister line, but it was so cold my mouth didn't move properly.
He was like, okay.
It was okay, kid. I don't know Journey into China.
Yeah, I don't either. And then Mackenzie Davis, so she's most known for Tully, 2018. That was kind of the last, or the movie that you said kind of broke her through. It felt like she was in Blade Runner 2049, and then it was there was a TV show. She was on
she's in *Halt and Catch Fire*, I believe.
Okay.
She's also in. She has a role in *The Martian*. She works at NASA.
Okay.
She and then there's a movie called *Izzy Gets the Fuck Across Town*. That's like an indie. It's all right.
I've heard pretty good things about that movie, surprisingly, even though I haven't heard.
It's
much
entertaining.
About it.
Yeah, I liked it. Okay.
Real quick, I just want to add in. She's also in one of the most well-renowned episodes of Black Mirror with San Junipero.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I haven't watched that show.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, Tully is the big. That's the one like the. Well, okay. We should really clarify this. The movie that actually breaks her is a thing that people see as Blade Runner 2049,
right?
Because that's a huge movie.
But I love 2049, and I don't remember Mackenzie Davis standing out.
She's the other person in Tully next to Charlize, and that's a Jason Reitman movie, and like that whole thing. So that's why that's relevant. But yeah, all three of these people did a great job in the movie. I just think that most specifically, Mackenzie Davis is the one that should have still been in the franchise, and unfortunately, she's not. And it's a bummer that it's a bummer that she's not a Terminator from the future, like where they can make another version of her and send her back. But if they wanted to come up with something in the next movie, if they decided to do it, they could put her back.
It just feels like if they do bring her back, they'll be doing a lot of the things that we dislike about the other movies, or just like what we dislike about movies in general. It'll be like, oh, we saved a part of her brain or her DNA and we built it in a lab, we recreated her.
Exactly,
Here she is again.
exactly.
You know, like no one wants that.
And I just don't think like they need to make another Terminator movie. If they do make another Terminator movie and they want to reboot the franchise in like 10 years, maybe. But even then, like you're not going to have Schwarzenegger, so it's a whole different conversation. So let's talk a little bit of production development here.
Yeah, so by December 2013, Skydance Productions was planning for Terminator Genisys to be the start of a new trilogy of films. Congratulations on that idea. Terminator Genisys was produced by Skydance founder David Ellison and was released in 2015, but development of the planned trilogy was stalled after the film's disappointing box office performance. Dana Goldberg, the chief creative officer for Skydance, said in October 2015 that she wouldn't say the franchise is on hold so much as readjusting. Shortly thereafter, it was canceled. Ellison felt that Terminator Genisys could have been better, so he recruited the franchise creator James Cameron to produce the subsequent film, and with him in hopes of creating a better film. Cameron was intrigued by the proposal, and I think that's really interesting because Cameron was behind 3 originally. I mean, hasn't he been behind all of them? But then he hated all of them?
I don't think he had put his name directly on any of them since 2.
Okay.
I think that he had been involved. That was like that's like the background of 3, 4, and 5. I don't think that he was on in a way like he is in this one. The one, in fact, I think probably it's a good time to cue it. We have this audio that I want to play really quickly, and it's a quick clip of Eddie Green, who has a show right now called Eddie Green's 101. And formerly it was a show called Terminator 101. It was a podcast. And, you know, Eddie's a longtime action fan. He hustles. He had a lot of really good Terminator guests on his shows. He just had Xander Berkeley, obviously greatest shit weasel of all time. T2.
He gets owned in T2.
He had Michael Biehn on an episode, several of the actors from this. So we'll just cue up a quick clip of him talking about this real fast.
No. The critics are definitely correct. This is definitely the strongest sequel since T2. Although I would argue that maybe T2 3D Battle Across Time is stronger. The Universal Studios attraction. Because that had Cameron on board as the director. And I think that is the issue. Amongst many other issues, I think it's the fact that you don't have him on set every single day and approving things and giving it the Cameron touch. He wasn't there. When I had the guests on, when I had Brett Azar, who's Arnold's body double at the beginning for the young Arnold, he was the guy that was
gigantic arm vein.
Basically the guy that they put the CGI over. To Claudia Trujillo, she was the Maria. She was the one that was under the bridge when Mackenzie Davis arrives. I had her on. And I said, was Cameron there? Like, did you ever see Cameron? And every single person said no.
Wow.
So,
interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not surprised. But at the end of the day, when I left the theater, I was like, that's probably why.
Sorry. Ryan, we can cue out of that. So I think that's a really interesting point. And I've never I've never been to that attraction, the Universal Studios one. I never saw that. I think it's similar to like the stuff they would do like with Captain EO at like Disneyland, where it's like an original film that's produced to be a part of a ride. Mm-hmm. And it is interesting to think that was made so long ago. It was a lot closer probably to T2, directed by Cameron, probably with practical effects. It's the last time we had Cameron direct actually Terminator footage that was shown on a movie screen. It's so different than what we just got in this movie. It's like, does sort of ask the question, if Cameron had just decided to make another Terminator movie, if he had just decided to direct this movie, do you get practicality like you got with Fury Road, where he decides to go and make Terminator with practical effects and he makes this a completely different movie? Can he do that, do you think?
I don't know. It's a really interesting question because just because your producer's not on set doesn't mean they're not making choices. They're not making decisions. This is James Cameron. He knows he's putting his name on another Terminator movie, so he's not going to just fuck around.
Yeah, right.
So I think part of what Eddie's talking about is interesting insider baseball, and I think part of it is just kind of nothing in the sense of it doesn't really matter that James Cameron's not there on set every day. He's still getting the dailies. He's still talking to Tim. He's still probably seeing cuts before anyone else is. Sure. He's probably there in all the production meetings. So I think it's interesting. I think if Tim Miller was a lesser director, it would have impacted it more.
Yeah.
Tim Miller's already proven to us through Deadpool that he's a good director. He knows comedy, he knows action, he knows how to tell a story. So I like the idea that James Cameron isn't there controlling the set. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that if he's not there talking to Tim regularly about what he's producing, that's a problem. And I don't know about that. And I don't know if Eddie can speak on that or not, but it is interesting to think about this Universal attraction and what that's like. I've never seen it, so I have nothing to say about it.
As a Terminator fan, it's actually I wonder if the footage, if that film portion of it is actually available to watch somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I'd be curious to know. Like, I remember obviously in T2 when they show the future sequences and you see like the Terminators walking through and the skulls getting crushed. It looks cool. And I do wonder, right, if like the shortcomings of this movie, because I've heard more than one person talk about how even like the poster, if you pull up the poster, you could even see the image in the bottom center of the poster for Dark Fate, not for this. The image of the skeletons separating from the T-1000. It even looks kind of campy on the poster.
Oh, and it's really because I saw one of the things in like a metro in the UK or something where it showed it was like a post, like an actual post that was holding up the metro, and then it had the Terminator coming out of it.
Yeah,
it looked really sick in my mind.
Yeah. It's just really interesting, like just the whole conversation about this, because obviously, I think like if you zoom in on the bottom there, I've seen it on billboards, and it's just kind of like,
I see what you're saying.
Kind of looks lame.
Yeah,
doesn't look very cool.
Well, I also think that having her holding the hook and chain on the cover is like kind of a disservice.
Yeah.
Also, because it makes it look campy.
Yeah.
When she has a lot of really badass moments, and if you save that to just show you at the end, like as a surprise, I think it's way cooler.
Agreed. Big shout to Mac Ryan in the chat with his first comment of the day. I hate this movie. 5-star general salute.
Salute to Mac Ryan.
General
a lot
Ryan.
of a very, very interesting chat today. Feels like I'm arguing with my family. But yeah, big shout out to Eddie Green there for all the work that he's put in. He knows more about Terminator than you and I do.
Definitely, yeah.
With his eyes closed or while he's asleep, and to get that little bit of insider information was super cool. So go check out Eddie Green's 101 on Twitter. Give him a follow. And as I was just talking about Tim Miller made his feature film debut directing Deadpool in 2016. Initially, Miller and Ellison had talked about Miller directing a new Terminator film after completing Deadpool 2. When Miller left Deadpool 2 project in 2016, he took on Terminator as his next listed project, and here we are.
Yeah, so and then you mentioned, David Ellison from Skydance. He's a big financier of a lot of the Universal stuff, so he gets behind Paramount stuff as well. He gets behind the Mission Impossible films and puts a lot of money into big projects like this. Written by David Goyer, Justin Rhodes, and Billy Ray. Billy Ray, who's also a director, and finally David Goyer, who's so involved with stuff like the Dark Knight trilogy and Blade and all that. So you have a lot of pretty reputable people making this movie. I think a lot of the things that work about this movie probably are attributed to the experienced creators. And
did you feel attached to anyone?
No.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the great shortcomings of the movie is that I didn't really get much of an emotional response. I think that's when you talk about comparing it to T2, where one of the biggest comparisons is that by the time that Schwarzenegger has there is still one ship left and he's lowering himself down,
you're like kind of heartbroken.
John saying goodbye, it's heartbreaking. In fact, that's one thing I do want to talk about is John, the opening scene. I mean, that's
someone earlier in the chat had written something, and it was very confusing in the movie when you saw it, and I wish I could we got about looks like 10 minutes left. I can't remember who it was, but they said, what is it with the new Terminator movies hating John Connor so much? Genesis made him a bad guy, and Dark Fate, they just straight up murdered him.
Yeah.
And I was lost for a moment, right? When John gets killed, you're just like, what? Does not compute.
The CGI on him, I think of the three of them, the worst was the Schwarzenegger CGI. He looked good. His arm band was so fucking massive.
Insane.
But I definitely thought that like the John Connor CGI was
Furlong was weird. It was like weirdly good.
I was like, this just looks like him.
It just looks just like him.
I don't know how this. I was like, is this footage they shot?
I guess you could maybe cast a kid that looks exactly like him, and then you have to do like very, very light digital enhancing to his face.
Well, it's weird too, because at Comic-Con last year, he was there and was like, I'm in this movie. He did an appearance. People got Edward Furlong was announced as
his name was in the credits. Yeah.
So maybe it's him, but I don't know. De-aged?
But it can't be. I don't know. I guess maybe you get a kid to do the movement, and then you have him. I don't know. I'm not smart enough for this.
And Linda Hamilton, young Linda Hamilton looked fantastic. It was bizarre. So I definitely think that was really, really interesting. So let's
it was Ivan Soto. Ivan, thank you so much. Go ahead.
I said, let's get into critical and box office here.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we have an extra 5-10 minutes here at the end. Ryan, are we good to go a couple minutes long?
We were good.
Great, terrific.
This is the sad part, right? This is where we get into the sadness. And so Paramount produced this for about just under $200 million. It was released November 1st, 2019. It grossed $29 million as of yesterday, domestic, and an additional $94.5 million foreign, for a grand total, this is as of yesterday, of $123 million, even though it opened at number 1, making $29 million. This is horrible. This is the worst thing that can happen for you if you're a Terminator fan.
I mean, yeah,
it's done.
It's over. You'd have to, considering how bad the last few franchise installments have been, there's not like, and we've been burned is the funny thing. Like, so T3 was its own unique mess because like it had Schwarzenegger still at a pretty young age in terms of his ability to play the role of Terminator. You didn't have to come up with a storyline to make him older.
Yeah.
He could still just be kind of young looking Schwarzenegger because he was jacked. But then like T4 goes for something completely different, which by the way, guys, stay tuned today. We are going to be doing a trailer reaction for the Terminator Salvation trailer because we both remember that trailer was awesome and the movie's terrible.
So bad.
But then,
and how was it?
yeah. Oh yeah, that movie.
Yeah.
Was that him freaking out?
Yeah, on set.
That's a classic one. We should react to that trailer.
Yeah. Just react to the audio of that.
That's so bad.
It's hard to listen
uncomfortable.
to. And yeah, I just think that like this, we're movie critics. We see almost everything. We talk about almost every movie, and we owe it to ourselves to see this. There wasn't going to be a world where we lived in where we weren't going to review Dark Fate.
Yeah.
But aside from that, if you're just like Joe Schmo movie fan leading up to the release of this movie,
I probably wouldn't have went.
I would have had a hard time recommending anyone to go see it because there's zero. I had started to hear good things, and I remember seeing a featurette. It was a featurette from the fight in the factory at the beginning. There was like I remember watching this little behind the scenes featurette and think, oh, that actually looks pretty cool. I was like, maybe this will be better than I think. And that was the first like glimmer of hope that I had. But that's like, again, you're talking about people like somebody like us who goes and watches behind the scenes featurettes of Terminator movies. Like aside from that, the buzz on this movie was absolute turds. It was there was nothing.
And it was, the one thing for us there was like kind of a small glimmer of hope was that, okay, well, we're getting to see it this early on. That must mean that the studios have some amount of faith in it, because usually if a movie's bad, they try to bury it and make you see, all the critics see it like the day before it's released,
right,
so the word can't get out about how horrible it really is. So really, really interesting. Mac Ryan here says that he disagrees with me. It isn't the worst thing that can happen as a Terminator fan. It's a good thing because the franchise can finally die. And Mac, we talked about that at the very top of the show, saying that it does feel like this is time for Terminator to die. And if that's the standpoint you're taking as a Terminator fan, I think that's a pretty unique one. And I think it actually makes a lot of sense. I feel the same way about, I wish Jason Bourne was good enough of a way for them to close the chapter on it.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was just bad enough for them to never make another one. So they did close the chapter.
And it's rough. Like you talk about being somebody who's pretty aware of what's going on in movies. You see the first movie in a franchise, you see the second movie in a franchise, and if they just keep making them and they keep getting worse, and then they just start releasing them straight to video, and then they start to be VOD movies. I mean, you talk about Sniper with Tom Berenger, like
yeah.
My friend Chad is the other guy now. He's basically the main guy in the Sniper franchise. They've made like 9 movies, and they're all like straight to video, and they're entertaining. But like the first Sniper movie's pretty sweet. It's a pretty good movie. But anybody who had any faith that franchise was like, I guess, legitimate in terms of like major box office, like a big cinematic theatrical thing, they made like 9 of them. So like, it's not anymore, and everybody knows that. And like that was what was happening to Terminator, was the franchise was going from being awesome, reputable, to getting worse and worse and worse and worse. This is a pretty good movie to go out on.
Yeah, it really is. And like, the movie itself will probably end up making between $300 and $400 million, I think, by the end of its run. It's only been out for a little bit. It's just, if you think about a producer, you don't want to pick up a franchise or an entity or an IP and be like, well, it should make double its money, hopefully by the end of 4 to 6 weeks. That's never anyone be like, sure, take my $200 million.
Yeah.
No, that's not the way it works. He goes, I want to make my money back opening night. I want to make my money back opening weekend. That's what I want to do. And then go from there.
Totally.
So Critical, you said you wanted to hold off. IMDb gives it a 6.6. Rotten Tomatoes, the Tomato Meter gives it a 70. The audience gives it an 85. What do you give it?
So I think, and it's important to establish the scale, because if you guys are watching for the first time, the scale that I use when I rate movies is that 10 is perfect. 10's like the best movies ever made. 1s are unwatchable, and 5s are exactly average. I don't like to use the 5 is like 7's not average. 7's a pretty good movie usually. And for me, I think when I think about this movie in retrospect, I'd probably give it pretty close to the IMDb score. A little higher, I think. Probably more like a 6.8, but like, yeah, 6.8, 6.9, almost 2 points above average. It was enjoyable. I liked a lot of it. Like, for me, when movies get close to 8s, they're really, really good movies. Like, so, like maybe a 7, but probably like a 6.8, 6.9.
See, I think I find myself probably in between the two on the Tomato Meter here. And I think I go, if I'm encountering in all three with IMDb at 6.6, I think I'd probably give it like a 7.2. 7.2 to 7.4, maybe.
Yeah.
I liked this movie a lot. I really did. And I went in with pretty low expectations, and that's probably a part of why. And I love Terminator 1 and 2. I'm not a diehard Terminator fan, so I'm not offended by the idea that a movie could be good or that they killed John Connor early on, even if it was a little bit weird. Favorite line is the next segment on the show. Favorite line is always tough when you see a screener weeks before we do our show, because yes, we could be like the old model of critics and come in there with a notepad and pen and paper and write things down, but we just don't do that. So
we like to be fully engaged in experiencing, and I don't like in an important moment when something happens to
check out, to write something down.
Well, I don't want to bring a notepad in, and I'm not going to do it on my phone.
Do my
phone.
phone.
People think I'm on my phone.
Yep.
So I'd rather go in, and if I'm writing it and I need to write something that's like very, if you're a written critic, I guess I understand the necessity, because you have to have points to reference. You need to create a compelling narrative in 500 words, but if we're talking about like we do, our reviews are an hour long. We get to talk about it all day. So
it's really tough. I can't remember what my line is. I think it's when Sarah, I can't remember if it's Linda or Mackenzie is talking to Natalia, or not, Miss Reyes, and they say something like, funerals don't help the dead and goodbyes don't help you, or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I really liked it, because the idea that holding a funeral for a dead person doesn't do anything for them. Yeah. I've always thought that was a very interesting thing, like having funerals. I mean, I get the celebration of life and death, blah, blah, blah. But I just can't remember the second part of the line. I think it's saying goodbye doesn't help you, but that feels a little wrong, because it feels like saying goodbye is like a very important thing in life, especially as humans. We seek closure. But anyway, that's my line. I can't remember who says it. I can't remember exactly what it is, but that's about all I can remember from favorite line. I mean, obviously the drapes conversation is pretty hilarious.
Some of the comedy lines, right? I'm extremely funny. I thought some of the comedy lines were some of the strongest. Somebody asks here, Ivan Soto, have I ever given a movie a 10? Definitely. Movies get 10s. I mean, on my 100 Movies I Missed project, I gave Pretty Woman a 10.
Yes, you did.
Goodfellas, I think, is a 10. I think there's a lot of movies that are 10s. I give Vertigo a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton. The Godfather Part 1 is definitely a 10. And I see movies that I think are perfect sometimes. It's just, even my favorites, Point Break's not a 10. I love Point Break. It's not a 10. You know, so anyway, those are our ratings here, guys. Let us know in the chats here if you think that this movie where it sits on that scale.
You don't have a line. Couldn't remember one.
I think it's probably one of the comedy lines. Would be my guess. So we have just a few minutes here left, and I do want to make sure that we get to talk about the action face-off. So I think I'm gonna eschew here the Paul Denuzio question, just because Paul was part of the face-off, so I think we can honor Paul in another way.
Yeah, well, the question is, despite the lack of execution in Terminator Salvation, I feel that if Terminator is to move forward, they have to get away from the somewhat stale formula. Do you guys agree or disagree? And I think the conversation that we've had about the franchise needing to die actually answers that question. I don't think they can change the formula to make it better. I think the franchise is just done.
Yeah, I agree.
So go ahead, action face-off.
So patreon.com/Team Action, we started doing this thing. We started it last night, and it's basically a debate-style show. We're running every other Sunday. It's available to patrons only as far as contestants. This first one was only broadcast to patrons, but starting next show, we're gonna broadcast it to everybody on our YouTube channel. Yeah. And it's basically, the question this week is, what is the best Jack Nicholson role of all time? So if you guys have ever watched like a movie fights, similar kind of deal. Everybody has to pick a different one. You get an allotted amount of time to argue your point. There's some trivia mixed in to kind of change it up, and we do the whole thing through a Google Hangouts type of thing. And Paul Denuzio, who runs our Patreon and is one of the legendary senior staff members of Action Industries, helped us run this.
Yeah, he basically helped us host the entire thing. It was so fun. We had a handful of people competing. So I judged last night, and part of judging is obviously you have to pay very close attention to the competitors' arguments, but also to prod them with your own questions when they rebut or rebut.
Yeah,
rebut. Because I think it gives back for a better rebuttal. But we had Wiley Todd, AJ Lancaster, Luke Sweezy, and Ben competing alongside Nick Gilmore, who's another general in the Action Army. And I judged it, and it was awesome.
It was so fun.
So fun.
It was hilarious. It was compelling. Wiley Todd and Luke Sweezy, who we hadn't interacted with as much because obviously the generals in the Army, AJ Lancaster and Nick Gilmore, we interact with quite a bit. But we got to know Wiley and Luke a little bit. Luke was a former debate kid, so he had come in with like written notes, fully prepared,
timed out.
Oh, it was really impressive. I got to the head-to-head finals in this one. I got to go head-to-head fighting for Joker, and he was fighting for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, R.P. McMurphy.
Yeah.
And it was just so much fun. A big shout to AJ Lancaster, General Lancaster.
He had some connectivity issues early on, which really stumbled his argument.
And he was also fighting for Warren Schmidt and About Schmidt.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Which is definitely it's an uphill battle if you're going against like the Joker and you're going against A Few Good Men. And so he went first. He had to fall on the sword of going first.
Yep.
And at the end of it, Drew just asked him, like, how'd you think that went? Adrian was like, it went horrible.
It was horrible. We all just started dying laughing because you can tell when someone loses their argument like halfway through. They forget what they're saying, and also how quickly 60 seconds can go by. So big shout out to those guys, and to you that if you haven't checked it out, patreon.com/Team Action. Sign up at any level. I mean, yes, if you're at the 2 or the 3 highest levels, you are guaranteed a spot to compete in one that you submit for, essentially, if we're not overloaded. But we do pick anyone from any of the lower tiers once a week. One person, or excuse me, once every time we do this, once every 2 weeks for the face-off. Someone at any of the lower tiers can be brought up to compete. Luke Sweezy is at one of the lower tiers, and he actually won.
He was a randomly selected person. So yeah, and then if you win, you get to be brought back. So patreon.com/Team Action. There's tons of perks. But this particular show, 3 of the 5 slots every week are going to be awarded to the captain, general, and 5-star general tier, with one of us filling the 5th slot, the other one of us judging, and then a lower tier is the 5th spot. So the next subject we haven't quite decided or announced yet, but we'll be doing another one of these in 2 weeks. It was so much fun. I had such a great time hanging out with all you guys, and it was just great.
Yeah, it really was. So make sure you guys check that out, and I have to do a quick plug. I'm going to be on the show that you were on last week or 2 weeks ago, Chill to Action, with our good friends Paul Denuzio and Richard Eric Jarvie.
Yep.
That'll be tonight, probably around 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. But check that out. It's going to be a lot of fun. 8:15. So, Ben, there are 3 action movie categories: totally ridiculous, totally legitimate, and ridiculously legitimate. Where does this movie fall for you?
I think this movie is probably totally ridiculous.
Okay.
I think it has elements that I like a lot. I mean, obviously some of the stuff in the movie is really cool, but like most of the stuff that was really cool was action. And when a movie has really great action, but the rest of it is kind of absurd, like I think it's easy to put it in the ridiculous category. Like John Wick is a good example of a totally ridiculous movie.
Right.
The action's fantastic. There's not much about this movie emotionally that connects to me, so I think I would have to put it in the totally ridiculous category. What do you think?
I think it's in the middle category. I really do. I think it's ridiculously legitimate. I think that there's enough action in this. There's enough stakes in it for me to care about what's going on. I wanted Arnold to live for a long enough time. I wanted Linda Hamilton. Like I cared enough, about their characters and who they were. I didn't care a lot, enough to make it totally legitimate, but it was just enough for me. The stakes were grounded. It was just right there in the middle.
So, guys, there are only 2 things left to do here. The first one of them is called The Pitch. And this is an interesting one. So we might be covering Midway next week. It's written on the schedule here.
Yes.
We're going to see it. And if it's good at all, or at least enjoyable, we're going to cover it. Now, this is an audible I'm doing live on air right now, because I thought it was during the week, and I've thought about running this by you. When I think about the biggest, dumbest, most requested war movie that has ever been made that's not Midway, that we've never done.
No. We're not doing Pearl Harbor on the show.
I'm teasing it. I'm teasing it for Jarvie. I'm gonna work on him, Jarvie. But let's just all hope that Roland Emmerich's Midway is really awesome, because that was what I would want.
Yeah,
I would want Midway to be great.
It will be good enough for us to not cover Pearl Harbor. I feel pretty strongly about that. We'll see.
So Mac Ryan here is letting us know this is the first time he's ever interacted live on an episode of AMA. Mac, it's really nice to see you in here, which actually
really
brings
cool.
me to my final point in the show. That is going to be a quick general shout out. This is crazy.
There's a lot. There's too many. Give me my pen.
So the first thing I want to do before we just give the full shout out is I want to give a highlight to all of our 5-star generals.
Do it.
We have 7 of them. We have Brianne Chandler, Miss Movies, Jeremiah Morris, Mac Ryan, John Getz, Jake Iacovetta, Lucas Shashek, and Alex Shashek. That's a household general combined. Kyle Grandetti and Paul Denuzio. Most of those upgrades were last night on the stream. It's the highest level of generalship that you can be in the Army. We had 3 as of last night. There are now 7 people at the 5-star general
Unbelievable
level.
support.
We jump into a little like general chat, like a Google Hangouts with the generals every single show before we go live.
We talk to them more than we talk to our own family at this point.
We also had several other upgrades to the general level, which previously was, until a week ago, was the highest level you could even be in the Army. And that's, and Jake Iacovetta is also a 5-star general.
Yes, Jake Iacovetta, also a 5-star general. And then the other upgrades, we had Cody Seal bump up to a general. We had Danny Joyce bump up to general.
Danny
Super,
Joyce.
super cool to see
Love
that.
Danny.
And we can't thank you guys enough, honestly, for your support. It just blows our mind.
And every other general we have as well: Andrew Hayes, Billy Belford, John Patterson, Kelsey Kirkland, Kyle Hilbert, former general. We have Tamura Buddha. We have Sari Lamanmaki. That is all of the generals. That's a lot of names we just remember. So thank you guys all so much for your support. It keeps the action brand rolling. Check out the Action Guys. We'll be doing, I believe, Schwarzenegger versus Stallone on the show this week.
Or the ranking of the Terminator films.
I can't remember which.
Yeah.
We love you guys.
Bye.
See you soon.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
Views expressed herein are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of its owners and principals.